Hey, thanks for joining us. Today we are working on a historic stone house in Keedysville, Maryland. We have a wooden threshold that has been holding water, and it's getting it's getting a little bit soft, getting some rot to it. With the age of it, it's not surprising. But in order to not have continued maintenance on it, we are going to take off enough of the top of this wood threshold to be able to put a piece of stone on top of it. In order to do that, we need to cut all the way around this thing. We're going to cut grooves in the top of it in a checkered board pattern, and then we're going to take a chisel and chisel everything out. But first we need to make sure that everything's level, which this particular threshold is leaning towards the outside. Actually, the left-hand side is a little bit lower than the right-hand side, and obviously you want it leaning out away from the house. That way, if any water does get in there, it will drain out. One issue that this thing did have is that it has two doors on there, and there was actually a threshold. You can see the one that's up against the door right now underneath the red door. There was one identical to that on the very outside of this threshold, and any water that would get in there would get trapped. It just made like a puddle in there. The only place that it did have to go out was in that front corner, the low spot, and that is where it was actually starting to get soft. So we're going to go ahead and cut around this thing. We are going to use an oscillating trim saw. This particular one is it's a corded Porter cable, and these things are amazing. They're great. Definitely, if you're using one, especially on something on a piece of wood that's this old and hard, bring several blades with you. We ended up probably going through maybe 6 or 8 blades over the course of this project. Definitely make sure that you have some good chisels, some good sharp chisels. This particular one, this is an antique that we've had forever, and we just keep putting new handles on it. Now, because this threshold isn't level on the front, we went ahead and drew a level line, and now we're going to take our trim saw and we're going to actually cut along that level line. That way the very front of this thing is 100% level. The back of it at the other threshold towards the inside of the house is 100% level. It's actually sitting really nice, so that way when our stone goes on there, even if we have a little bit of a belly in the center there, it's going to allow us to make up for that with our mortar. So we have a nice level spot on the back and a nice level spot on the front. Now, this is the fun part. We have a nice level area here on the front, and we have our checkerboard pattern cut into the centers. Now we need to grab our chisel and start working our way towards the back. Now, with a piece of wood that's this old, it's hard to tell what's been on top of this over the years. Inevitably, you're going to hit a bunch of nails. It's nice to have a nice sharp chisel on here, but you want to bring several of them with you. You're going to hit a nail. It's going to mess the tip up on the chisel. You can bring a belt sander with you to touch that chisel up, but it's not going to get it razor sharp, so bring several of them with you. Anytime you're working on these old houses, you're going to end up ruining tools. Some guys get super picky about their chisels. Now, if we were building musical instruments, I would be very, very picky, and we would have to really have some nice, finely tuned equipment. When you're doing stuff like this, it's a little bit rougher work. We use our chisels for what we need to use it for, and then we fix them later. So we bring several of them with us, and we make sure that we get our stuff done. Finally, we have everything about where it needs to be. Everything's looking nice and level. Now we need to cut the stone out. My dad has come down to give us a hand with that. He came down right as soon as all that chiseling was done. I'm not thinking that was much of a coincidence. But anyhow, I appreciate all the help, and we're going to get this stone cut out. The doorway is not square, so we do have to cut this stone a little bit crooked to make it fit. We're using a diamond blade on our circular saw, and we also have a small diamond blade that is on our angle grinder. And these blades work great to cut this stone. Now, when you have a piece of stone that is this thin, you got to be real careful with it. It can just, completely break on you where you don't want it to. So, make sure you take your time, go nice and slow. Now, before we dry fit this piece of stone to make sure it fits, we have to remove these door seals. They stick out just far enough to be in the way, so we're going to go ahead and remove them. They're going to have to be cut off just a little bit to accept the height of the new stone that's in there. But we're going to go ahead and get them removed, and then we're going to dry fit this piece of stone. Then we'll mix some mortar up and get it set. Okay, this looks pretty nice. Now we need to get a piece cut for the front. We're going to get that measured out. And this is going to be a real careful cut. This small piece of stone, it could break in half real easy. So you want to get everything marked out exactly where you want it, and you want to make sure that you have maximum RPMs on your blade. Make sure that blade is spinning as fast as it possibly can, and you're going to cut it real slow to make sure that you don't break this thing in half while you're cutting it. Alright, now let's go ahead and get our mortar mixed up. This is a pre-mixed mortar. Makes it a little bit easier, a little less time consuming to get this mixed up instead of having our Portland and our sand and all of our parts to have to mix together. We can just break this bag open, just add water, we're good to go. When you're mixing this, the consistency of the mortar is important. You don't want to have it too runny, you don't want to have it too dry and too stiff. You want to have it somewhere in between so that it's workable. That way when we lay a bed of this down, the stone can be set on top of it and we can work it around there. Now while we're spreading this mortar, we're going to make sure that we don't put a ton of mortar in here. We don't want it to squeeze out all over the sides, but we want enough of it that it's gonna really hold tight to that stone. We want to make sure that it covers every little spot here. Now this particular mortar will actually block any moisture from going down underneath the wood, so we want to make sure that we fill all the little gaps around it to keep any water out. We don't want any further rot underneath there. So there is some grooves cut in the bottom of this stone so that it will adhere there, really well. And then with the cross cut that we have in that wood, once that mortar dries and sets up, it's really gonna give it a really good adhesion. Nothing will be moving around at all. And we need this stone to set on here perfect. It can't be leaning one way or the other. We want it leaning away from the house. That way when it gets wet, the water sheds away. But we can't have anything leaning down. So we're picking it back up, we're throwing some extra mortar where it needs to be, and then we're going to double check it with a level, keep moving it around, and make sure that this thing is setting just perfect. We have one shot at this. After it dries, there's no moving any of this stuff around. Now, when we start these projects, we usually have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do them. We usually have a pretty good game plan before we start. Every now and then, in the middle of the project, we change it around a little bit. We did have a piece cut for this front. We decided we changed our mind. We were going to go a little bit different route. We ended up cutting a little bit smaller piece, and I think this is going to look much better. So we're going to go ahead. We got it set in a bed of mortar. We're going to go ahead and get some more mortar shoved in around the edges, and we're going to go ahead and strike all these joints and get everything looking nice. At this point, everything's nice and solid. We're just making it pretty. Okay, now we have everything just about finished. Now we just need to stay off of this for at least the next 24 hours, let everything dry, get set up, and we'll be keeping an eye on these mortar joints and everything, after that, just to make sure that everything sets up right. We get it brushed out. That was a fun project. This particular house we've been working on for about the last 20 years. We've done a lot of extensive work to it. Now the homeowners have it to where we are pretty much just taking care of maintenance items. So, we definitely appreciate all of our clients that are in the local area here that have given us work over the years, and a lot of them really have turned out to be long-term clients. So we've been very lucky. We definitely appreciate all the work that we've been given over the years. And if you own a property in the Washington County, Maryland area and you need some work done, feel free to give us a call at 301-432-1932. Visit our website at www.smithwren.com. And if you are just fed up with dealing with the maintenance on your property, we'd love to buy it. We'd love to make you an offer on it. You can visit our website at directhousebuyers.com, or you can call our real estate line at 301-660-6063. Thank you very much for checking out our channel. If you're interested in seeing some of our other projects, there should be a link in the screen right around here. Check out some of our other videos, give us a like, and subscribe to see all of our new stuff. Thanks a lot.